I want to talk to you guys about AI and the future of hiring. I am crazy passionate about AI, trying to help people understand what's happening in our economy. Um, I have been doing this version of a gig in some way, shape, or form for now 30 years this October. And my biggest passion is helping people to understand what their superpowers are, what are their unique strengths, and to help them turn that into work that's satisfying. Except that we can't do that if we don't understand the economy. And so that's where I'm trying to pull all of this stuff together today. I would like to also acknowledge the land upon which I am presenting from. So Tansei, I acknowledge and respect the Lekwungen, who are the Songhees and Hochsapsum peoples on whose territory the university stands, and the Lekwungen and the Wasanich peoples whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. When I'm at home, I'm on Teachamista Nation. And I just wanted to show you guys a map because I personally hadn't seen one. I'm relatively new to Victoria. Um, just how big the territory is that we're talking about. In the chat, can you guys tell me how many employees are at your company, the nature of the company where you work? So is it a public, private, startup, nonprofit? Just so I sort of have an idea of who's here. And then I'm gonna try, is it gonna go that way? Skipping.
Slavka says 73 between BC and Nova Scotia and a private company. Kimberly Dart says ATB Financial, approximately 5,300 employees, and technically they're a crown corporation.
That's right,
Lisa,
right. And from Berta. And did I saw some other people from Berta as well. That's awesome.
yep. Lisa S says 100 to 150 municipal recreation, part of 500 plus capital regional district. And then Diane says around 100 employees, market research, and private. Jordan says 600 employees across BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, and Yukon, and private.
Okay.
Olive says we have 70 people located in Vancouver, BC, and it's a public company.
Great.
Kaylee says that they manage 5 staff and hire 14 students every summer because the company is much larger and public. Michelle
Oh,
says nonprofit, 50 employees in BC. Kevin says BC private company, 350 employees, forest industry. Christina says approximately 750 non-for-profit. Sarah, good morning, says BC-based environmental nonprofit, approximately 20 employees. And Len says Island Health Pharmacy, 300 plus employees.
okay. Wow. Okay. That's awesome. Great. My experience is larger companies tend to hire co-op students that you guys have the capacity for more onboarding and talent training, et cetera. Okay, cool. Thank you. And people from all over, that's spectacular. I want to first kind of give you guys the lay of the land, big picture, and then dive into sort of more locally where things are at for people. Um, I also want you to understand that there's like this perfect storm brewing. So this is Karae's version of the economy in a nutshell on one page. These are the things that have been happening. So first off, we actually are having a shortage of workers. World War II, we came home from the war, those people who survived and went, woohoo, let's make babies. And we have this massive, biggest ever generation called the baby boomers. The baby boomers are just about to retire. The youngest of them is 60, so about 5 years. If they retire, some of those edges are getting a little bit fluid. So the challenge is all of those people came from relatively large families, but then didn't have large families. So I'm one of 4 kids, and between my brothers and sisters and I, we only have 4 children. And I don't know if our kids will then have kids or not. So the generations keep going down like this. So we're not able to replace the baby boomers. So then the next natural conclusion, which I'm sure is partly why you hear a lot about it, is to go to the talent pool that's untapped. So that's our diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't know about you, but my experiences with that, everything is richer, everything is better. It's the perspectives. I think we all benefit. What we also will see happening when there aren't enough workers is companies will go to automate more. They'll be drawn to things like AI. The other piece of the puzzle that I want you to know about when we're talking about the people that are involved, our human capital, is declining mental health. So I can't remember where I read this from. I apologize. But the stat is that people who are under the age of 40, 50% of them will have a mental health crisis. So the world is changing so drastically. It's on fire. They don't know if they're going to be able to have babies, own a home, all of those things that our generation maybe took for granted. And now we have AI. So it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. So on top of that, piled on top is our climate crisis. We have a green economy. Or sorry, we're aiming for a green economy. We don't have one yet. And that means things like low carbon emissions and net zero. So net zero is when I own a big company, I'm producing a lot of carbon, but I go talk to maybe a startup tech uses no carbon, and I say, hey, can I buy your carbon credits so that we together become neutral? And so we'll look for things like that. There will be many job losses. It is predicted there will be just as many job gains in the green economy. Um, and because we have people from all over, I just want to add a note. I have a brother who lives in Alberta. And so we have some very in-depth discussion about AI and how things are going to change. And he's like, oh, green economy, solar and wind's not going to get us anywhere. I don't know what you people in BC are talking about. So, which made me laugh a lot because at that point, one of my brothers was selling electric cars, and another brother was working in an aquatic system or industry, I guess, with new tools that were responding to the changes in the economy. So, in places like Edmonton, there's a lot more wind than there ever has been. And so, on things like lakes, all of the flotsam and jetsam pile up on one side of the lake. And so these people have very nifty tools to deal with it. So just to be open to the idea of green economy and what that might look like. It's basically new jobs that we haven't had a need for before. Piled on top of that is artificial intelligence, which I'm sure you're all aware we're going to need some new skills. There's no two ways about it. There's pros and cons to all of the AI stuff. Um, Endless. Um, we may need to figure out micro credentials, or we may need to do what the BC government predicts, which is that 80% of us will need a minimum of 6 months retraining in post-secondary. So I don't know about you guys, but can you stop your life and just go attend 6 months of university or college? That's a lot to ask of 80% of us, of the working population. And then now we have commerce added onto that. So our geopolitical instability, tariffs, interprovincial trade, and economic precarity. All of that is change, and the people who like to make predictions are having a hard time making predictions. They've in fact come up with a new framework called PESTLE, H, to try and help at least grasp what is going on. Maybe not. Maybe not make any predictions, but be ahead when things happen. So this is what I want to take a look at today. Demographics, entry-level positions, skills and demand, hiring and team sport. If you have any questions, please just holler. My joke is that I'm like the oldest of four and 4.5 years, and I'm used to like, if you yell, you get heard kind of a deal. And sometimes it's hard to hold your question to the end because you can't remember the context. So please feel free to put a question into the chat and Amelia will read it for me.
Slavka says, and this is not a question, but that this is the week that globally we reached the point that renewable became the biggest source of electricity. So how exciting.
Whoa. Oh my gosh, that's very cool. Thank you for sharing, Slavka. Wow. Okay, mind blown. It's definitely been The last couple of weeks, I keep having to redo this PowerPoint because of the information that's coming out. It just, okay. It's going fast. In the chat, could you tell us, is the company that you work for using AI or software tools frequently enough that they have replaced the equivalent of a worker? At a friend's company, national level company, very large, everyone would know this company, but I'm kind of sworn to half level of secrecy. Um, they are no longer allowed to use AI at work. And many of their employees are having a very difficult time with that because they need AI to do their jobs and get all the work done. For salespeople, it makes cold calling way, way, way easier, much more effective. But I think that this national level company has decided they don't want all their stuff out there on the internet. And so that's the only way for now that they can do that. I think they're going to have to adjust that policy. Okay, so what have we got in the chat, Amelia?
Most people have said no or not yet.
Okay, okay, we're waiting for it then. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
One person did say we are using very, very basic AI.
Okay, okay. So we're not all crazy into it yet. Excellent. I'm going to apologize for all of the text on the screen because it won't go from the slideshow. I don't have the animations. So we're riding rough today, guys. So
Slavka says we use AI a lot, but not replaced a person yet.
okay, so that's maybe our most extreme level then. Okay, excellent. Thank you. So here's the deal. Our driving force is productivity. We never recovered from COVID, and by we, I mean in Canada. I'm still sort of at that big picture level. Um, the other G7 countries we have the lowest level of productivity. Productivity is important. It means that we're all going out, we're working, and we're making money. If we're not making money, we're not paying taxes, and then the government can't run the country. So we don't have healthcare, we don't have education, we don't have infrastructure, all those kinds of things. So productivity is a dying focus, right? It's a burning focus. And so it's another reason why I think AI is just going to get bigger, stronger, and faster is because AI helps to maintain productivity. An employer can, in theory, use less people or same amount of people get more work done. And also immigration helps to maintain productivity, just in case if you wonder why we have immigration. We have this high unemployment rate. Well, before that, we had a strong immigration program because we didn't have enough people to work. That's that shortage of workers. So the challenges to productivity, the best article I found or group of information researched is it's actually out of Alberta, the productivity in people. There's going to be a total of 6 reports. And one of these was so surprising to me, literacy. The quote is 50% of the population of Canada are not literate enough to make the changes required by AI. Which blew my mind. Thanksgiving dinner, talking to friends and family, couple elementary school teachers, and they're like, oh no, kids aren't literate. They're 2 to 3 years behind. We're having such a hard time trying to teach what we're supposed to teach because they just aren't able to read enough yet. So the cost of AI to business and the planet will also be really hard to keep productivity going. And then the other thing that this group is saying that's standing in our way is testing certifications. They say that we need an open education system. And the best example I heard of that actually was on a podcast. A person talked about if you could think about how we get a driver's license, we can learn all different ways. And the bottom line is you take the test and therefore you're a qualified driver. And that's what they're suggesting is an open education system. So, which makes things look different. So then I think to myself in my business, that would be something like Lighthouse Labs. Don't know if you're familiar with that, but they've just closed. They were teaching very specific skill sets in AI, or not AI, sorry, in software. So I think there's probably a lot more going on in the background with that company. But in theory, those companies should be growing. So from also from this productivity project, we have this information about Canada's skills mismatch. So a growing change between like what employers want and what the workers have. So shortfalls in foundational skills, you're probably going to start to hear a lot about that. That you need to ask what a foundational skill is because I'm going to bet everybody has different definitions. But the idea is that literacy underpins adaptability. Adaptability is defined as how we learn, unlearn, and relearn, and that's what we're going to need because of AI. And so if we can't learn, relearn, you can imagine, right? The good news is 1% literacy gain increases our productivity by up to 5%. So we can grow leaps and bounds. But sadly, we're looking at a bigger gap because of AI and automation. The other piece of information I want to share with you, not to keep us all completely depressed, but is the paradox in hiring. This is from the World Economic Forum. So again, I'm sort of just at this big picture level here. We have a dual workforce challenge, and it's something that hits personally to my world at the university. So the first thing we have is or that they're suggesting is World Economic Forum, which I'm going to ask you guys about where you're at. But overcapacity in legacy roles. So AI is automating routine, repetitive, process-heavy jobs. And as a result, many companies are overstaffed. So they're keeping institutional knowledge and soft skills, but they're not necessarily retraining those senior level staff in accordance with AI things. So it's an uncomfortable spot to be in. We
Hey,
also have,
Karae,
yes.
um, Slavka says, do you think that legislation is about to change things for us when it comes to AI? I am thinking of Ontario's legislation coming up in 2026 that companies must disclose the use of AI in hiring.
Yeah, it'll be super interesting. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think somehow or another, we're going to have to get a grip on what's actually going on. And currently we have no guardrails, right? No safety. I did listen to a safety expert the other day. I don't know much about him. But he's talking about because we don't have safety or guardrails, that 99% of us will be unemployed by the end of 2027. And so I think, in fact, we will see government doing a lot of things to go, whoa, just a sec. How can we manage this? Um, and manage it for the benefit of the people as well. See, somebody's left. I've just too much bad news. Um, I promise we'll get a bit better as we go. So, talent shortages in AI driven roles. So, new demands will be created for both technical roles, strategic roles, and human centered roles. On my board, I have AI translators, AI builders, and AI educators. I think education is going to have a huge impact. Like every company is going to need somebody that teaches everybody else how to use the AI. So that understaffing will push companies to use AI to fill gaps. The paradox creates productivity function or friction, pardon me, cultural strain. So just uncertainty and morale, like what's the point? And then economic risk. We need to get all of that sorted in a quick hurry and feel like we have a plan before everything kind of blows up around us. And so the plan that the World Economic Forum is suggesting is that, in fact, companies have two strategies. So invest in learning ecosystems. If you go to the Lisa's Challenge Factory, she has a whole package about setting up career centers in organizations. And for those of you who come from large organizations, I would highly, highly recommend looking at that stuff. We
Tara wants to know, what is the government's responsibility in the larger macro challenge of upskilling? In her experience, having worked for the government of Alberta ministries like labor and trade, they'll provide funding for upskilling.
Right. Yeah. I don't know that the government has a responsibility to do anything. What they choose to do will be up to them. And so I can't really answer that question. Um, they will, I'm sure, are already looking at what's going to be the best bang for the buck because we don't have a lot of bucks. And that this productivity, I think you'll find, will be the focus. I think you'll hear more and more about it over the next 6 months to a year, et cetera. So we need to create adaptive workforce planning. How can we teach people to be flexible and adaptable? And then talent pipelines in collaboration with post-secondaries. So that comes from the World Economic Forum. I'm highly in favor, slightly biased, but highly in favor of that. I think if we think of it as a village that we're supporting and keeping and working functioning, that if we work together, we can sort it all out. So some things I'd like you to consider. I'm going to throw a whole bunch of information at you and then just let you to walk away with questions to talk about with the people that you work with. So things like what AI or software tools can help you with training tasks, with guiding experiences, and with learning goals. I now say to the students, it's not that their jobs are going to be erased by AI, but they need to figure out which AI tools they're going to need at their work. And then could co-op students help you to remain productive while transitioning into an AI economy? So I had a student, a computer engineering student who did his job, and as soon as he was done, he was to report to the boss, and the boss asked him questions for sometimes an hour or two on AI. Anything that this student knew about AI could show him how to use an AI, etc. So a very creative way to use some brain power. Um, if students knew that's what you were interested in, I'm sure they would spend some time focusing in on it. Okay, so that's the stuff I wanted to share with you about demographics. Now I want to talk about entry-level positions. So this morning on CBC, there was a big report. This information specifically comes from Conference Board of Canada, Canada's Workforce in Transition. The majority of our jobs will in fact be affected by AI. The question is how much, how often? And so they have high exposure roles versus low exposure roles. If you grasp that AI targets cognitive work, analyzing data, recognizing patterns, and drawing conclusions, so those are the jobs that they're going to replace, then what we're at is reducing entry-level positions. So if we're only stuck with our senior or intermediate to senior level people, how are we going to onboard? How are we going to bring in new talent as these people retire? Canada ranks the highest among the OECD countries for post-secondary completion. The OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It has a ton of great research, a ton. So we are insanely educated in this country. Like I think it's top 5 in the world. I forget the exact number. But we also have the highest rate of underemployment among graduates. And that is another reason that we're looking at some pretty deep mental health predictions. So the recommendation is to focus on a skills-based approach to education and training. As a university person, I can't do that if I don't know what you at a business want. One of the things that we were listening to yesterday from the Future Skills Report is there was some research about these skill gaps, and then post that, there was deeper research. And the deeper research is a big disconnect on vocabulary. So students will tell you they have communication skills, employers will tell you they don't. So we need to get really clear on what communication skills are, what we need from students. How do we what are their personal management skills that we need them to have? Things like that. And talking between our institutions to try and have that same language. It's part of that build a village, our AI functioning village. So what I want to do now is put you into breakout rooms so you guys can process some of the stuff that I've been throwing at you. Um, I will just randomly pick. So, how do you see entry-level roles changing? Will there be a need for in-house training to reach higher levels? And does your organization have a talent management program to take people from junior to senior levels? If you're in a small business or maybe a private firm, how are you going to manage those kinds of things? We need a spokesperson from the group. And can you tell me, Amelia, how many people we have? Awesome, thank you. Thank you, Amelia. That's really good to hear. Really good to hear. Awesome. Okay, how about group 2?
Good morning. It's Kevin. We had a group of a very cross section of the industries. There's industry, there's municipality, there's CPA firm, One of the themes is that there's difficulty in finding new talent. People just aren't applying for jobs. The ones that do apply have in our program the themes. They start out, but it's never the intention to stay at the junior positions. There are in-house training programs that identify skills and talents and um, hopefully help them progress through, because we want people that are now running the show in 10, 15 years. So
Right. And they probably want a year at the bottom and then up.
yeah, and we never got into any of the AI, changing the training programs to use AI for that.
Okay. Okay. Fair. This is my first opportunity to go, okay, wait, where you guys are at, like, which is important to know, like, locally. Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, group 3.
We didn't have the questions copy over, so some of us were going off a bit of memory. So sorry about this, but I
No.
think the general sentiment to the group was we're in very, very early stages. With our organization, for example, in engineering, we're looking at things like what's predictive enough where we can leverage AI, like a chat GPT, to, for example, like help us with copywriting that would be predictable for proposals, for example, but very early stage exploration.
Okay, great.
We do not have a talent management program. Yeah, we're in our infancy on building it. So it was really cool to see what World Economic Forum is recommending about like internal peer-to-peer skilling up. I find that really interesting, like the internal hub career center. So thank you for that.
That is actually Challenge Factory, which is out of Ontario. Not World Economic Forum, but I'm really glad you heard me on that. That's spectacular. Yeah, it gives you some interesting ideas about how to think about things and make it, I think, more manageable. And my apologies with all my tech craziness to not get the questions in. So thank you for adapting and overcoming. Excellent foundational skills, Tara's team. Well, I guess everybody's team. Are we on to group 4 now, maybe?
Yeah, we actually had some very interesting comments. A couple of us were in manufacturing or in environments that were already heavily processed. So the entry level positions, you would just come in and follow existing processes. There was a couple comments from that too, and that the level just above entry level will be impacted here, and that will roadblock the entry level people from trying to reach their higher goals. And in terms of talent management, a lot of it's being outsourced. So any people who are in there will be gone. So there wouldn't be any opportunities for the entry level people to grow into that. We also had an accounting firm, and excuse me, the basic bookkeeping will obviously be impacted. So that will impact entry level roles.
Yes, yes. Okay. All right, that's interesting. So do you see more of a need maybe for contract work for entry level? You probably didn't talk about that. I'm jumping. Okay, how about for group 5? Amelia, you're muted. Was there a group 5?
I think it was just 4 groups.
Okay, there we go. Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much for everybody for that. It's really good for me to be able to just get a pulse on what's going on. So I want to talk now about skills in demand, which will take us over to a Padlet. If I'm really lucky, I'll get it on the screen. The idea is to say, so there's 2 ways you can access the Padlet. You can just go in through the QR code, like with your phone, and then use your little camera to click on it. Should take you to the Padlet. I will pull it up on the screen, fingers crossed, in just a second. There's also the link on the bottom. Let's go like this, and I have to stop sharing, I think. Oh no, I have to just go over there, I think. Okay, sorry, 2 seconds. That way, there we go. And I will share screen 1. Okay, can you guys see the Padlet? Yep, okay, great. So I'm looking to know what kind of human skills, soft skills, emotional, social skills you're looking for in your organizations, as well as what tech skills, which there may be less tech skill need than I thought. So you can just add a comment, click in there and add a comment, or I think the other is the pink thing if you want to go bigger. Are we working? Maybe I need to do this.
Can we put the link in the chat?
The questions or
For the Padlet.
you can, yeah, absolutely, we can give that a shot for sure. So hopeful firefly, I would love to understand what you mean about communication skills. Can you break that down? Collaboration and professionalism, yeah. And same with professionalism, like do you mean like time management? Do you mean like speaking respectfully? Just how would that look? And then yes, if the chat is easier to use, then for sure we can do that. Because it's not tech day. Okay.
Yeah. Kimberly raised a hand.
Yeah, I got the moniker Hopeful Firefly, so that's me. It's probably just easier to talk about it. For communication, especially with students, I often see either they're not clear when they're communicating like via email, very casual in the workplace, or if they have a question, they aren't asking it. They just will wait and see like, oh, I don't know what to do, so I'll just wait until someone tells me what to do versus reaching out and getting that clarity.
Okay.
And that can obviously cause some problems later when you think the work is being done, you find out that it hasn't been. And that's, it's not every student, of course, but definitely I've seen that. Generally, they're very good at collaboration. Like I don't see any gaps because they do that a lot in school and that. And then professionalism, that goes with that. So everything from work ethic, clarifying, this could be both communication as well as professionalism, clarifying their work hours, their expectations. We have a very flexible work environment, but does that mean we want you working at 2 a.m. or do we want you available during the day? So things like that. Don't make assumptions, I guess, would be the clear thing on there.
Right.
So that just gives a bit more context to what I put in there.
That is awesome. Thank you. And you know what never ceases to amaze me is the things that we all learned that we didn't know we needed to learn when we first started working. I like Creative Penguin, including informing teams of task status. I think that's a really great specific definition. Thank you. Teamwork, customer service. Okay. Ability to disagree. Yes, that's my favorite. Awesome. Okay, so
Someone said in the chat, leading a neurodiverse workforce in my experience is becoming more prominent with our younger gens identifying with being upwards of 50% neurodivergent.
yes. Awesome. That's a really great point. I think we are woefully behind and need to figure things out to support our neurodivergent people because they have some phenomenal skills and experiences to bring. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so team players. Yeah, I think sometimes what I find is explaining what a team player is really, really helps students. So just if you have that opportunity, I say to them, you know how there's always somebody in the group you don't want to work with, but you still have to get the work done. That's being a team player. And they go, oh, okay. And they don't even know that that's important. They just know it's their daily reality. Okay, so manufacturing. Oh, yeah, and we don't teach soldering at all. And I've had students apply for jobs and go, well, I don't know what it is. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what it is? Like, it's just not a part of their world. And a whole lot of them have not had access to shop classes, which in my generation, you kind of did something. I'm sure we've all seen people. Don't look at this. Anyways, Excel, okay. Yeah, that's another one. A little bit tricky. In the high schools, they use Google, and they come here and we're like, no, we'd like you to use Microsoft Office. And they're already learning so much in school that the thought of learning new software is a bit challenging for them. But it's good to know then that Excel's on the list, and GIS. Yeah, I bet that would be nice to have everybody trained up. Yeah. Yeah. So that's Sarah, are you hiring geo students that are not coming with GIS skills? Just out of curiosity?
No, but it's a skill that we use a lot. So we do hire students that have the correct training. But it's other people may not understand what they're doing. There's definitely a gap of knowledge of what they can do and what people maybe think they can do.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Getting
fair.
at. And I just had a comment about Google, which is interesting to me because our organization runs off of Google Workspace. So we've found it very advantageous when we're hiring new young people. They all are like, oh yeah, we know how to use Google. So it's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is the first time I've heard that. That's okay. I think I've been in the business world too long then. Okay. Like in the little nook and cranny that I was in. All right, awesome. Oh, look at this. We're moving. Okay, so is there anything else in the chat that I should know about?
Nope.
Okay. So again, a bunch of things for you to think about, but would discussions with co-op coordinators and faculty help to bridge those gaps? So Sarah, in your case, I think maybe if you were able to say to some of the professors of like for the students that are coming to you to say they think they know GIS, they don't, are there other activities? We do have some very interesting clubs on campus that you might find super valuable. So in particular, my favorite is West, so Women in Engineering, Science, and Technology, and they have employers partner with them to make something, fix something. And so there's a lot of skill building that goes on in those groups. Yeah, so Women in Engineering, Science, and Technology. And then if there are individual skill gaps, how are you training entry-level people? How are you training co-op students? Is there a performance management program? I find a lot of us, because I have a big educational bent, I started out my degree as a teacher. For me, performance management is just training people, educating them. But it's not something that everybody sets up. Okay, so hiring is what I want to slide into now. So again, into breakout rooms, and I will do my best to get the questions in there. What I'm really curious to know is if you've received AI written cover letters and then how you could tell they were written by AI. And then did you interview this person or did you say, no, I only want people with writing skills? Also wondering about for online interviews, I have heard that some students have an AI tool running on another screen that's telling them how to answer the questions. I want actual proof that that's happening. And then how could you tell they were getting their answers from a Gen AI? So let's see if we can, Amelia's going to put us into groups. We'll just do like 3 minutes max, just really quickly, where you're seeing AI show up. And then we'll see if we can get the questions in. Don't hold your breath though. Be really independent for me. Oh, I think broadcast does it.
You could broadcast the questions too.
Yeah.
Good idea. That's what I'll do.
Okay, awesome. You'll have them at the very beginning of the chat if that helps. All right, so is everybody back, do we think, Amelia?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. So group 1, how many of you have received AI written cover letters that you know of?
All right, I know that my camera was disabled because I moved around or something. I won't do it again, but I can report back if you turn me back on.
Oh no, like we turned you off, you mean?
Yes, because I stepped away or something.
Oh my gosh. Amelia, can you check on
Yep.
that?
No, I'm back on now. Okay,
Oh,
thank you. So anyways, yes, people definitely had received cover letters written by AI, and they
okay.
could tell because there were often like certain words that were overused, like passionate, for example, results driven. Also, you could really tell that the text from they'd taken the job posting, popped it into the AI because it was kind of a regurgitation of the language of the posting,
Okay.
that sort of thing, or the tone of the cover letter was totally mismatched with the level of writing or that was in the resume. Those were some of the things on the resume on the letter front. And on the interviewing, we didn't have an example of exactly what you described, Karae, but there was one person who said that you know, it was evident that on a virtual interview that the person on the other end was Googling things like that had been in the question and sometimes would do things like turn off the camera after a question had been asked and then come back on. So, pretty obvious. And yeah,
Okay, that is really good to know. Thank you for sharing that, you guys. Awesome. Okay, group two.
I'll speak for the group. We had kind of a mix of experiences. Some companies have noticed AI being used. Largely, it sounded like if in-person, face-to-face interviews are possible, that's still the route most employers were going in order to avoid a lot of these problems. However, when it's not possible, a few of us agreed that using AI as a tool in your application is fine, as long as you're upfront and honest about it. So if the applicants are asked, did you use AI when you created your resume? If we can tell that obviously they have, if they're upfront and honest about that, it's a tool like spell check or anything else that you might use.
Yeah.
It's when they try to be deceptive and say, no, I wrote that beautiful cover letter all by myself. And it's very clear to us that they have not, that it becomes a problem.
Right. Okay, awesome. That's great. That's very fair too. Thank you. Group three. Do you have a spokesperson for group three?
I can go. We didn't talk about that much. Yes, we've received AI written cover letters. Same as what others mentioned, we can tell by the language used, whether it's a copy paste from the job profile or the flowery language is usually what I see, like I'm passionate about everything. And a lot of use of M dashes as well.
Sorry, wait, what's an
Deleted,
M dash?
so when you, like a hyphen, it's called an M dash. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
to connect thoughts. Our leaders do all of their own applicant reviews, so I can't say if they interviewed and I'm just speaking to student roles or not, but they definitely
Sure.
reached out to the talent attraction team and said, hey, why are these all AI? Because they could tell. Also similarities, if you have a lot of students from the same academic program applying to the same job and using the same AI program, they're going to have very similar cover letters.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we didn't get to the interview portion. So although I
Okay.
have heard tales just in general of students, looking down and while they're in a video interview or something and reading off their answers.
Karae, just
Wow.
so you're aware, we're at 10.
Okay. Awesome. Group four is our last group, right, Amelia?
Yeah. Again, we had some very interesting experiences. The answer to the cover letter is yes, and increasing numbers. We can tell through specific punctuation, and the wording in the cover letter is just too advanced, too mature to come from a entry level person.
Okay.
In
Great.
the interview, yes, they've seen people, doing the eye twitching off to the side, so they know that they're looking at a screen. And some people put the obvious AI letter candidates in the hold pile and interview what they feel are the legit cover level people
Okay.
first.
Okay. Thank you very much. I just want to give you the perspective of a student. We ask our co-op students to apply for an average of minimum of 20 jobs per term. And we want them to customize. They're doing that at the same time they're doing midterms. It's super overwhelming. So they'll do anything to save time, but equally, they're not confident in their skills. And two of our colleagues, Leo and Ash, actually set up a little research study. And sure enough, those people who don't know how to use or how to write cover letters can't tell if ChatGPT is doing a good job or a bad job. And there is also the pressure of the mandatory co-op. So just some questions to consider. Does a student use an AI tool indicate their ability to do the job? Is there a different way to structure a hiring process? Already talked about that. I wonder if cover letters will become obsolete. Last thing is it's a team sport. I just want you to, employers are no longer customers of traditional learning, but co-creators in an open continuous learning system. So this is from the Productivity Project. It's why I put you in breakout groups. I want to try and start building some connections in any way, shape, or form that we can. First step is to recognize the importance of collaborating. 70% of employers prioritize enabling competencies over task-specific competencies, which I thought was kind of interesting. At UVic, one of the coolest things about our co-ops is that we have these core competencies across the board for all of our students that we talk about, which I think helps guide us where we want to go. So some collaboration to consider. AI tools cost money. Are there other companies you could collaborate with? And that is what I have for you today. I apologize again for all of the tech craziness. I'm glad that you could stick it out with me. I'm Karae. Please feel free to email me. Just my name, Karae White at uvic.ca. And now Kareem is going to do the fastest thank you ever.
All right, thank you. That's it. Just kidding, but thank you, Karae. This has been a really engaging session and thought-provoking session.